Hello guys, so let's continue further. These are the list of items I'm planning to cover today's video. Let's see how much we can cover, else we can continue in the next video. So far what we seen is like how to make a call in a postman and how to do the basic assertions, and we went all the way down to assertions like validating the response code as well as expecting some value out of it. Like, let's see how we can do the JSON schema validation. When do we need JSON schema validation? For example, I can show you some. So this is one of the API sample response. If you see here, for this small mock application, the response is really small. But whereas in the production system, especially the system that you tested, you may get the responses which is going to be really lengthy. The object may be a single object or it's a list of objects which you need to validate. It's not possible for us to go and validate each and every line. That's not practical. Whereas if you have something called schema, which you can compare against the response to confirm whether the response matches the schema or not. What is schema? Schema is a kind of metadata to say that the given JSON is in the right format or not. For example, here ID has value as a 2, which is a numeric 2, whereas an email has a value as a email ID, which is in a string format, and the data is a JSON object. So likewise, the metadata has all the information about each and every field and what is the order and what field is required or not. Everything is there in the schema. How can we construct the schema? It's really simple. There are a lot of online utilities are available for us to generate an schema out of JSON response. So all you need to do is copy paste this response, copy paste the response that you got from Postman and give generate schema. Now this is how the schema looks like. Even the schema is going to be in JSON format, but if you see, it has all the metadata about each and every field. The data type has to be object, the ID has to be a type of integer, the email has to be in string. So everything in this order, and even it has which fields are required or not. If you think that avatar is not a required field for your contract, you can remove it. So it's completely up to you, but this is what we are going to use, do the assertion automatically to make sure this response has the schema or not. I already documented this. For example, we need to get the response code 200, then we need to validate whether the schema matched or not. To do the schema validation, the Postman provides a library called chai. As I told you in the previous video, Postman is a sandbox which has the libraries that we needed. It has lot of libraries from Mocha and Chai library collections. So we are going to use tiny validator. So all we need to do is construct the JSON schema that we copied from here. You could see it here, exactly matches that. And finally we are going to see validate using tiny validator for library, and it's going to validate and it's going to say whether it matches or not. Let's quickly run. Okay, so if you see here that we got the user schema valid and we got the assertion result as pass. So what is the next? Forming a workflow or chain. So if you look at here, right, so in this particular collection I already made a folder as a positive cases and negative cases, in which I put the records in order so that we can run as a whole collection or run as a workflow, meaning if you wanted to perform a chain, for example here even in this case, right, so I wanted to create a user, then I wanted to get the same user and finally update the same user that I created. Then I'm trying to log in user ID that I created. Then finally I'm deleting it. The reason why I wanted to do the deletion at the end, I don't want to dump our system. Even it is a testing environment, we don't want to keep creating a account automatic way, especially when you automate things and put it as part of Jenkins. It's going to keep bumping everything into the environment, and find over the course of time we may have hundreds or thousands of unnecessary data setting in the system, which may slow down things, which I don't want to do it. That's why, like, usually I prefer this kind of workflow model to make sure the data clean, and also we tested everything what we needed in the test automation. So this folder separation gives you some idea about, for example, sometimes you may want to run the quick sanity, where you name the folder such a way that you can selectively run only the small set or subset of collection that you call subset of records that you wanted to run. That's why, like, logically separating the folder is wise. It's up to you. It's completely optional. You can figure it out what is best for you. So currently I separated all the negative cases as a separate and the positive cases separate. Okay. So if you look at here, this is how we have listed out the get users positive case, create user positive case, get user. This will get all the users. This will get the single user. That's why, like, we need to mention the user ID. This is a, like, since it's a mock application, they kept around 1 to 20 user IDs as a constant. It's always going to be there in the system. So I'm just using user ID tool to see what is happening. That's what we called just before. And update and login and delete. So if you really wanted to run the whole collection, there is a way to do it. For which you need to do is just come and click this three dots button, and you can see option for run collection. Just you need to select, just click run collection, it will run manually, iteration 1, delay. If you have any data, test data, that you need to pass to this collection, you can do it. Right now I don't have any data needs to be passed to this collection, so I'm going to simply click on run sample web service, this collection name. Okay, so all tests are passed, all the records and the corresponding assets are passed. Let's see. I think there are 27 assertions altogether. 26 passed, one failed. Let's see why one failed. It is failed part of negative create user. Okay, this particular guy failed. Okay, so I know the reason. Okay, so whenever we are creating a user ID, we are expected to send email ID. That's what our assumption also. So if you take any modern application, right, when you wanted to create some user ID, obviously you will be entering your first name, last name, and email ID has to be provided to confirm you are the real user, and for future communication you need the email ID. We are intentionally not sending the email ID and see how application going to react. This is what we discussed in the negative test cases here. Create user by not sending the record field. So we are assuming that email ID is one of the valid and record field, which we are not sending, and we are expecting the test. We are expecting this request to return 400, but unfortunately this guy returns 200, meaning it's just pretending like it's created. That's why you see 201, and it's something like creator. It's responded like it's created, but this is not the valid. That's why our assessment failed, which is expected. Our test capture the problem, which we should be really happy and proud about it. Okay, now let's see how we can extracting value out of response and store it as variables. Okay. So I told you, right, like it's better to run as a chain or workflow so that we won't dump the data. So for which what we need to do is whenever we're creating a user ID, we are supposed to get that user ID and store it in some place where we can reuse that ID. For example, right now get user, I hard coded the value, but whereas if you create the user ID, you will be getting a dynamic user ID. That's what we are supposed to capture, and that has to be used in further request calls. How can we do that? To do that, Postman already have an option to extract the value out of it. That's what we are doing it here. So when the response is success with the 201, we are storing the response body. The response body has the response that we are converting as a JSON using the libraries which are available already in sandbox as part of the Postman sandbox, and we are going to extract and store it here. Postman.environment.set user ID user.id, which means the user, the response that we get. I can show you the sample response. We're calling it as a this, and we're getting the ID out of it. Let's go back here. We're getting user.id. This is a name that whatever you prefer you can give. You can give user ID or ID. It's up to you. There are two ways you can store the variables. One through the environment variable or to the global. So you pick the selection, you make the right decision where to store your variables. If it's something specific to the environment, it's better to keep it as part of the environment. If you think that it's common across all the environments, you can put it in a global. Mostly the environment means it's going something like QA, stage, production. Obviously, production you won't do much of aggressive testing, but whereas in the lower environment called dev or QA or stage, you may need to do. So whatever the test you run, should be able to run it in multiple environment. So right now I'm just going to store it in whatever environment available. So currently I selected the environment variable called environment setup called QB. So here environment is nothing but another JSON. I already set up. You can set up your new environment. Here there should be option to do it where you can create it or we can create or clone new environment. That should be you should be able to easily figure it out. It's like it's again it's completely user friendly. So let me run it and show you. Before running, I wanted to see whether any value exists or not. Yeah, there is a value already exists. So if I run it, this value is supposed to get overwritten. Let's see what's happened. We created a user and we got a response. In the response, we see ID as 175. This value is supposed to be overwritten in environment variables. See here, the current value is 175. Okay. So next thing is we got this particular value and we stored it. How can we use it in further API calls? So you can use it in a URL. Also you can use it in body if you want to. So the get call doesn't have the request to be sent, but whereas if you want you can send it in any other post call or put call where you have the body which needs information. So if we go here, so right now we are going to see how we can use this variable in URL itself. So if you say user ID, see if you see here, right, so user ID, E stands for environment, so it's stored as part of the environment. We are going to use it and we can save it and we can send it. Okay, so we got the responses of 104, meaning user not found, and all our assessments failed as expected. So we are expecting the user to be available and get the response code as a 200, but this user doesn't exist. The reason is this is a mock application. That rest.in is a mock application. They won't let everybody create the user IDs and keep bumping their system. They don't want to dump their system. So they pretend like they created every time they give some unique user ID as part of this response, but actually they are not storing anything in the database. That's just a mock. That's why it's failing, which is okay, and it's a right because it's a mock. They are not storing it, and we don't have the user ID in 175. User ID called 175 in the system. Now let's see how we can do the chained assertions using Mocha or Chai library. Let's bring back to user 2. So if you see here, right, the pm.expert, what we are saying is get the pm response, postman response as a text, and see whether it contains this email ID or not. Then again we are saying to include this avatar URL, the profile URL. Okay. Likewise, we can keep training more number of assessments that we wanted to perform. Even for example, I can do include the first name of the response. For the user ID, what is the first name going to be? The first name going to be Janet. I can do this as well. I can say I can just call it. It's going to validate everything as part of it. Just to prove it whether it works or not, I'm going to say intentionally some different name. For example, Anderson. We know this particular user is Janet Weaver, and the first name is always going to be Janet, but we are intentionally sending Anderson. Let's see whether it fails or not. Yes, it does fails, and it says that it doesn't include the Anderson. That's why the assessment failed, which is expected. Finally, one more thing I wanted to do, which is a schedule run. Not only we can run this collection manually every single time. There are three options we have how to run this collection. Run manually, like the way how we did just few minutes back. We can do the schedule run. If we say schedule run, and if we give some naming, just for the purpose, I'm just giving a demo. Okay, so if I give 9 my time 9 o'clock, it will run and will send me a result in email. Okay, when this kind of scheduled run is really useful, let's take that your code push happens every day, or if you wanted to like run your test every day like 2 times or 3 times, this kind of scheduled runs are really useful, especially if your test environments are always static environment. If you think that code push going to be keep on happening in your static environment like QA or stage, which you wanted to constantly testing more often, this kind of scheduled run will help you out a lot. So I'm going to schedule it. Okay. So this video is going really lengthy. Let's continue in the next video. I hope by that time the scheduled result will be available, which we can explore in the next video. Thanks a lot. Thanks for watching. Please share it with your friends. Please subscribe. Bye.